Sweet.
Okie dokie, here we are. Okay, so we are back with our usual Saturday chat, Hic Noon chat. So we have a couple of new friends that are joining us this week. So quick round of intros, and then we'll start right off. I'll just go with my order of the screen. So Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike. I make neural network art, and I also have been building some tools for Hic Noon.
Super. James.
Hi, I'm James Patterson. I'm in Montreal. I'm an artist and software developer working at Hic Noon a lot.
Amit.
Hi, my name is Amit Pitaru. I'm an artist, a creative technologist, I guess, software maker. Love making tools for art. Excited to be here. Currently at Google Creative Lab.
Super. Lewis, I don't know if you're there. If not, we'll go to Steve and then we'll go back.
Yeah, I'm Steve. I'm a musician, developer, and I feel very humbled to be amongst this special crew of great developers and stuff. So, yeah, I'm pretty much entirely dedicated to working in Hic Noon for NFTs at the moment.
And Chantal.
Hey, it's Chantal. I think I'm just a big kid living in Jersey City, trying to, connect and experience the world through drawing and creating and using lots of tools that lots of amazing people make in the world.
Super. And I don't know if Lewis is there, but if not, we'll get back to him once he's back. Yeah, no, great stuff. So I think we said we were going to talk about a couple of topics. The first one was tools. I think we have here a lot of people who created a lot of tools for the platform. So I would pass it straight on to you guys, and maybe Mike, you can start it off, and we can get chatting around tools and also how we would like these to be integrated within Hic Noon. And yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I got started on Hic Noon, maybe in week 1 or 2. And things were still pretty rough in terms of the software platform. And yeah, I'm an artist, but I'm also a software developer. And so as I was starting just to learn, this is my first foray into how the blockchain, even blockchains in general, work. And so just started looking at all the APIs that Hic Noon is using on the back end. And then as my desire, for example, to discover new pieces grew, and I realized, the main site is serving the full resolution pieces, even in the preview stream screen. It was slow, and so I decided, okay, let's see if I can write a tool to, well, first of all, scrape every object and make a thumbnail out of it, and then make a quick discovery tool to just show them quickly, so I can, because there's so much. I just wanted some sort of a visual tool to show them all at once, and just clicked next until I find something that I want to look at, and then I can click on it and go through to the actual object. That was the first thing.
Can we add links? Can we add links like in a chat that the public can see right here? So that Mike, do you want to drop a link to what you're talking about, and then people can go and check it out? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I just thought it would be worthwhile for people to be able to just jump.
So people can see this chat here.
What you're saying.
Yeah, so not the private one. Let me just...
okay, comments.
Yes, exactly.
How do you post the comments?
How do you comment in the comments?
How do you comment in the comments?
Maybe from the web? We gotta go to the web to do it?
Yeah, I don't see an actual way to post comment.
Oh, I think I can do it, so I can do it for you, maybe.
Yeah, okay. Great.
That's strange that you can't.
That doesn't come up as a link, but all right. Yeah, that's the same.
Cool.
Tools.
Now that I've completely sidetracked us, there you go. My first job of the day complete.
I can also share my screen actually, so we can see it. 1 sec. Feel free to
live demos. That's the worst. That's always when things break.
Or you can share your screen as well. I think everybody can share their screen. So if you just go to maybe actually that's better. if you do it than me. But if you just go down to the bottom to share and then share screen, you should have that. Yeah.
So we are streaming from StreamYard. I've never used this before, so it's all new.
Yeah, it's from Periscope and StreamYard. Yeah. So it's kind of the only way to get it live on Twitter. Okay. In the meantime, got it.
I think I got it. Okay. All right, can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's the site. And yeah. So the design behind this was just to make it super simple. I didn't want a lot of filtering things and the buttons, so I just decided to go just with price range as a singular filter thing, and then you can just click on any of these, and it will just replace all the thumbnails really quickly. And then if you like one of them, then you can click on it, and it'll take you to the site. And that's really it. It's intentionally very simple and minimalist.
It's cool. There's this proliferation of all these different tools. Like it might be nice to just zoom out a little bit and say, Hic et Nunc is this very open platform, and then so many of the people who are getting involved, either the artists themselves, like in your case, or developers who've joined the party and are making third-party ancillary tools, like little satellite tools that are all kind of bolting onto Hic et Nunc, serving just various purposes, scratching various itches. And it would be interesting to just maybe talk about those tools and how we imagine could they ever be reintegrated back into the mothership is a question that I know that's been floating around. And also maybe it would be great to talk about, there's also this kind of breed of NFTs themselves that are tools, that are art tool, boutique art tools and NFTs that make NFTs. That might be fun to just talk about all that stuff. And I know Chantal, even knowing the way that you work, we could go back to just tools, like our pens and paper, and just that whole kind of ecosystem of that idea of tools is fascinating to me.
And then, not to interrupt too much, but I have so many elementary questions about Hic et Nunc that I'm sure other people do. So when we get there, I'm going to just reel it back and just be like, what does this mean? Why does this happen? What does that mean?
Amazing.
I think, Luis, you're on mute.
Yeah, there he is.
I was going to say what you were saying, James. When I see people making these tools, I also see it as an expansion of the potential of the medium. I think about everything that's possible with this token. But whenever anyone's poking around and these tools that seem so practical, I also kind of try to think about how they could be integrated in some artwork. I see all of these as little bits that eventually could feed a piece of work. I think they're serving a lot of awesome practical purposes now, but hopefully they start to, artwork starts to emerge from these kinds of explorations.
Yeah. I think also what's nice is that a lot of these tools, it sounds cheesy, but they're being made by artists, for artists, or by creatives, for people who are actually using the platforms. So instead of, this kind of hierarchy or this board of people who aren't actually using the platforms making decisions, the decisions are coming from people using it and kind of seeing a need for these platforms, seeing the need for these tools. And there's so much more value to that than a very select amount of few people making the decisions and then implementing that across the board. Because if you don't like these tools, you don't have to use them really. But we're seeing previews of the options of what it can be being such an open platform.
Yeah, I see it like a sandbox to explore ideas at really low. If you want to add something to the real site, there's kind of a software dev barrier because it has to be sort of properly implemented, if you like. But if you just want to hack around and make a quick HTML page, the barrier to entry is really low. You can just try things out.
I think what you're saying, I mean, your tools are amazing, Mike, and I think what you've done is utterly brilliant. And I'm amazed it's got so far. I think like a couple of months behind you in terms of exploring what these APIs can do and stuff. But I think, Chantal, to answer your question, it's a lot of the time developers are just, if you're an artist and you're a developer and you've got a little bit of skill, sometimes you're just solving a problem for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I started one of the short link things, and it was just me going, I can never remember what my URL is or how to get to this person's URL. So just make something to get you there quickly. And then, as Mike's correctly hit on, what the biggest problem we have on Hicket Nunc full stop is just the fact that it's so, once you get beyond the collection of a certain amount of pieces, the pages just can't load anymore. They just fall over, you know. And there will be a solution there. What I find a little bit frustrating is that nobody really knows what the roadmap is in terms of trying to solve these. Is there something we can do? I mean, maybe that is just getting more involved in the GitHub and get involved at low level. But you know what Mike did to solve that? He was just solving a problem for himself. He wanted to see stuff quickly, wrote it. There it is. It's cool. It's there. It's a tool. And I'm very interested in exploring how that can be now slightly democratized. People can build their own little curated galleries of stuff and put them up quickly. And it'll just, you know, create thumbnails, and they can do that, share it, and then people can get to purchase their work quicker, and it won't fall over if traffic gets busy, you know.
I believe there is. Sorry, good.
No, go ahead.
I believe there is a roadmap towards faster loading with thumbnails, with reduced file sizes. I'm not exactly sure when that's going to roll out, but I believe they're working on it.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, it goes both ways because, you know, right now we can, even if you have these thumbnails, eventually, even one object could bring the whole site down. No, I mean, I remember when everyone was messing with SVGs, I was like, all right, let's mess with SVGs and see what we can throw at it. And you know, there you could have infinite stuff drawing. And so if you don't have take some care to you know, throw away some of the things you're drawing, just one object could actually do it. So I think that's amazing aspect of the platform, but it's also, you know, it'll be one of the growing pains eventually if you know, it goes beyond
that thing that Chantal was pointing out, that it's like tools and addendums to the site growing up like naturally just from the ground up, without having to wait for some team to design it and decide and deploy. Like, that's such a beautiful thing on the front end when there's this proliferation and this ability to just like have these abilities springing up. But then you quickly get to where I think we already are, which is that you have this proliferation of tools and it's like how do you aggregate them back into something that's easy to reason about and easy for new people to come and experience. And I think like one of the exciting kind of Wild West aspects of a totally decentralized platform is like you get the benefits and then you're like, this is the hard part that you get right after that honeymoon period.
But I think also all of these things have been solved. You know, that's why I'm very optimistic. Like,
they've been solved, really?
not in Hicket Nunc. I'm saying like in the rest of the internet. You know, like lazy loading is solved. Thumbnail previewing, all that stuff is like in any other, you know, centralized, let's say, organization with a team that's, you know, doing that stuff technically is solved. It's a technical issue.
The details are solved, but the governance and the organization part.
That's what I'm saying. The technical details are solved. How eventually it all gets implemented, that's a whole nother story. Yeah.
But I think, you know, the word that you use, Steve, that's really interesting is roadmap. And, you know, I've been using this because it's fun and, you know, I saw James using it and, you know, kind of wanted a nice distraction from where I was and so ended up there. But like, what is the roadmap? You know, the roadmap is obviously for it to work well and for us to be able to use it smoothly without it crashing or doing these things. But is there a higher narrative that anyone is aware of where this is going and where tools could be directed to?
I think that's
great question.
It's a great question. Maybe something that Raphael could potentially answer, but I don't think he could even answer that well. Like, I think we've had discussion in the past, especially last week, where we talked about HDAO, where, you know, a lot of things kind of came up that it's very much up to the community really to even like shape how Hic Nunc will be. I do think that I keep hearing, like, since I've been doing these talks, like there's more of a want from the community to understand what's next for the for Hic Nunc and to like get a bit of a roadmap. So maybe it's something that might be needed. I don't know.
I saw on Twitter. I mean, Andre Venancio, he dropped a surprise tweet about tags coming out, and it was like, "Hey, cool, we got tags," and I think there was a bit of flack flew back and forth. You know, nothing bad tempered or anything, but just like, oh, it would have been nice to know that was coming. And Andre was like, well, sorry for giving you a nice Easter egg surprise, but and I like
gift horse mouth.
Yeah, exactly that. And I just go, cool, we got tags now. It's really hard to know what's coming next. It's going, like you were talking about, guys who are really, really good at what they do. It's just, I think the explosive growth and the rate of uptake, it's almost impossible to keep up with. And even from my limited explorations on the APIs, doing some private stuff of my own, like just trying to get familiar with things and seeing what I can do with it. I mean, sometimes it just falls over, and it's going, oh, I can't cope anymore, because there's just so many requests going in. So it'll be really interesting to see how that. What I would love to know is if there's just a way to feed. Like Mike's done some amazing stuff. I've seen so many brilliant tools. There's so many brilliant little things have appeared, but it's a case of, is there a way to get our efforts together, some learnings, to get those things fed back into a code base that can get back into the main site, or is it kind of just everybody's doing their own thing and then eventually somebody will build it for the main site? That's something I'm not 100% clear on, or whether there's a desire for that, or I just don't really know. Because
I guess it's also about expectations, no? I mean, like, I'm a very casual artist compared to everyone that's on the stream here, and
not me,
you know, I think I remember the first time there was like a recursive API thing happening sometime in, I don't remember, March, but it was right when I was really excited to, like, with my partner, drop something, and it was like connected to a cause as well. And that was another one of the topics we want to talk about today. And so, like, yeah, let's do it. And it was like 1 a.m. or something, you know, here in Barcelona, and then we like, all right, let's do it. Wait, we can't do it. And we had like a week worth of work behind us of like putting all this together. And at the same time, we weren't disappointed because at this, you know, we know I've spoken with Andre, I've spoken to all the people there. And so it's like, I can't expect them to be fixing stuff at this point. But you're right. You know, at a certain point, you know, when should people expect something else? You know, when should people expect for the page to load quickly? And I don't know right now that there's the structure to be able to do that, and if such a structure should even exist, you know. I mean, open source projects have governance. I know that we even, you know, but they don't have like an HDAO, you know. So I've been part of a lot of open source projects that do get organized somehow, but there isn't this HDAO dimension. So I'm really curious to see how that actually drives.
Yeah, that seems to be the two, like, because what's mostly being talked about right now is the actual physical form of the site, the feature set, what can you do, and wrangling all these tools back into something that makes sense. But then there's the whole other side of it, which I know that Raphael is dealing with, which is that he's, you know, the decentralized organization aspect, which is just as much of a question mark. And so it's just this sort of, it's a soup of questions.
I mean,
so what do you do with that soup? What do you do with that soup?
What do you do with the soup?
Yeah.
Having been part of a software project, both small and large, I have a lot of sympathy for when a project is really small and there's only a few people who know the core. It's really hard to actually add more developers because if you add it in too quickly, the whole thing becomes really messy and kind of the code structure really blows up. So you have to be kind of careful to grow it slowly. I think of it as like at first the ball is really small and only so many people can touch it. And only when the ball grows can you add more people helping. And so I totally understand that it has to be slow. And that's why I think that just the adding of auxiliary third-party tools is nice because they can be completely independent and act like a tryout sandbox where people can just play with ideas. And once you can play with them, you can see, okay, well, maybe this one or that one would be good to integrate. but you can learn a lot about what that experience should be like before you implement it properly, if you like, on the actual platform.
Yeah.
I have a question for you based on this, and maybe you know the answer. The idea of creating those satellite tools or sort of features that are existing on their own, separate from the core, can that be done at a contract level? Like we've been talking about trying to get a really truly collaborative NFT format up where you can split attribution, like have multiple creators, and you can also split revenue and have multiple people receiving revenue from an NFT. So that way, if you wanted to do an NFT for a cause, you could send the money to the cause, or send part of the money to the creators and part of the money to the cause, maybe to people who are building libraries that you are making your art out of, that kind of thing. If we wanted to do something which would require the brain surgery of writing the actual smart contracts, could that all be done in like an existing satellite world and function? Or as soon as it gets to the smart contract level, is it like core only? Like you can't even play around with those ideas?
No, somebody was developing an NFT that was doing precisely this. I can't remember the guy's name.
On Hicket, but would it function on Hicket nunc?
Yeah, they were doing some tests on it. I mean, that James, that is the game changer. That is, as far as I'm concerned, that is the big one. The ability to suddenly divert, any small amount of percentages wherever you want is. I mean, you can imagine the scale of that, what that means, but particularly for collaborations in music, and be giving some money to open source people and causes, as you've hit on all the main ones. And did somebody there was a little test. A few people were trying it out, and I think it looked quite promising. It just requires somebody with a good understanding of the contract level language. But as far as I know, there were some alpha tests happening on HIC.
If I'm not mistaken, James, I think the smart contract already allows multi-signature situations. I just think it's actually an interface thing. I have to go back to dig in the Discord and things like this, but I think the smart contract, whenever it was updated, that's part of it. But again, I have to verify that. So I think it's a UI thing, to be honest.
Because it comes to some of the stuff that we're talking about, like we're talking about if we're going to talk about the broader topic of tools, we're standing on the shoulders of incredible software libraries, 3JS, processing, open frameworks. And it was brought up by Toxie a few weeks ago, Karsten Schmidt, that he's like, artists are getting thousands of dollars in like half an hour for a GIF, and we can't get a couple of bucks thrown to processing or whatever, the tools that were used to software developers that are creating these things, year in, year out. And I love the idea that somehow that we could get that collaborative at the contract level thing set up. But it brings up this other question of like when there's a desire in the community, like it seems like there's a really palpable desire in the community for that, and there's a desire in the community, but the core developers are really strapped. Obviously, like it must be so overwhelming to have anything to do with actually making the nuts and bolts of Hicket nunc. So when there's something, there's a need and everyone wants this thing, how to push it? And I'm actually asking this to all of you, and I'm really curious to know what everyone thinks. Like, is it a matter of I've been tempted to set a really, really juicy bounty, and then also try and collect other people to match that bounty. But then you've got a bounty, and then let's say you've got a really healthy bounty to create this feature. How do you even disseminate that if 3 people then start working on this thing? It's like, how do you even know who gets what? And it gets really complicated to know. And is it even too controlling to do such a thing, like to set a bounty for a core feature? So I'm wondering what you guys think about it.
That could be your proof of it, that it works, is that the guys who build it have to get it to split the money.
Yeah, exactly.
They have to agree on who gets what.
There's an incentive right there.
Yeah.
To be honest, like I think like looking from an external perspective, because like obviously I don't use the platform as much as you guys, like as like minting and stuff like that, but from like conversations that I've had with Raphael, I think like he's very much of the approach of, if you want something to happen, like make it like do it. You know, create a Discord channel, like set something up whereby you can get together a team of people, maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 10, who can potentially like build that. So even with like the HDAO and the conversations that we've had, which kind of like, you know, overlaps with this, because again, even with HDAO, we were thinking about, you know, how to distribute HDAO, like to the developers, to the people that have been helping out with, like, you know, Violet, for example, she's been doing all of the Discord, like she's been building the community, you know, a lot of people, like, so I think it's, to be honest, it's also very much up to us. I think that's the kind of the ups and downs of being a DAO, because essentially I think nunc is a DAO in a way, and like everybody, even though we don't know where it's going, it is essentially like a DAO. So it's kind of giving people the power, but also sometimes you're like, oh, should I do it? Should I not? Like maybe the answer is let's do it, and then we'll see.
Yeah,
right.
You know, I think. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think, you know, there's a recurring theme here of expectations. And I think, you know, knowing what the expectation is between being a client and a community, because, you know, for example, if you're using something like Shopify, it's very clear that you're a client of it in a way, or you're using that service, and then you have certain expectations for it. And you are trusting that your work that you put on there or your product, you know, you know what you're getting into essentially. With this, I think it's kind of integrated or kind of wrapped up in it being also a community. And then that is interesting how it looks to be like a part of a community where you have a bit more kind of freedom to let things go or let things crash or not be as good as they want to be, or, you know, you have a little bit more time to use your voice and, you know, kind of push the narrative that we don't really know where it wants to go, but we're willing to give it that bit more time. But then at the same time, we see ourselves as like being a client or a, you know, kind of using this as a service. So we want it to be all of these other things. And I think we're kind of in that middle place where we, you know, there's that weird juxtaposition or kind of tension between those two things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting point. Very interesting. Go ahead.
I used to, with a couple of friends, run a makerspace or art studio makerspace, and we had we called it a duocracy, where people, it was very similar. We were all users of the space, and people would come in and would say, "Oh, it'd be really cool if we added this tool or that section or added this," and we were like, "Go for it, just do it," and then we will try and figure out if it's in anybody else's way and try and come to a consensus, but it's not going to just be done if you don't do it.
Yeah.
So it's very similar here, I think.
In the case of this collaborative split contract thing, since I was getting the sense that there's so many people who want it, I'm going to just go ahead and like start a bounty for it. And then if it turns into a big mess, then everyone can watch what that looks like. So I'm willing to, to put my head on the chopping block on that
watch
one.
this space.
And then we could be like, let's try and like squidge a feature through on purpose. And then if it doesn't work, then we can take notes and try it again differently.
I mean, it's fascinating. I just have not looked at smart contracts yet as a dev. Like all the developers here, just, you know what it's like. You can just go down a rabbit hole. You could learn this stuff and get on top of it. And then we start seeing behaviors on nunc, for example. You know, there's people who've written smart contracts to buy up things, like buying the minute they're available, so the collect button isn't even involved. So I'm not necessarily wanting to get involved with all that, but what I would like to understand is how it works. And I'd like to be able to build something that could do that, just to understand it.
Yeah. Amit, well, you can. Oh, sorry, I was going to say, Amit, were you going to say something? But I didn't know about that code thing where people are making codes that surpass all of those things, but there's so much I don't know. I'm also learning a lot here too.
Yeah, no, I'm actually, this is fascinating. I'm thinking about this like passion-based roadmap, so, you know, thing that's happening here, and whoever's most passionate about something that seems that more people want, let that emerge. And so I think when that goes into the coding side, which seems to be sort of the atmosphere and the vibe, which is amazing because it makes us want to wake up in the morning and do more art. So that's the point, right? And I love that when it translates to code, and it translates to some sort of like bottom-up coding, right? And so I agree with Steve that like you want to start with somebody who has a lot of somebody either who really wants to learn it or somebody who knows it so well it's not a big effort for them. These are like two archetypes of coders. I feel like that would be perfect for something like this, right? So I think James puts the call out, and I would go with either of them. Somebody who's never done it before but is like, this is what I do. I learn things and that's how I make things. Or somebody who's done this 4 times already. Either I think would be great.
Luckily, you can write them in Python because I don't know if you've looked at as a Michelson code. It's, I don't know.
Pretty horrible.
Look at that.
I don't understand. It's just left bracket, right bracket, left bracket. What does it mean? It's completely.
Worse than writing MySQL queries raw. It's
with
really
regards
bad.
to like, I don't know, features, and I think Violetta had like this feature upvote, which then had to change because they wanted some money for it. But if you look on the GitHub and you sort the issues by the feature request label and then like sort by most likes, I mean, that you start to get an idea of what most people have like thumbed up. So that's also I tried to make a sort of a prettier interface to it with this hen vote, but I still haven't finished messing with it. If there's too many requests, GitHub doesn't allow it. But in any case, that's also a way to, if there's an issue there, like it, and it'll bubble up, and eventually that could be a way to start organizing a little bit what could eventually get developed.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I think that's great, and it just sprung a question, jumped into my mind that I have for all of you actually. What I'm seeing a lot with a lot of the new platforms is that we're kind of borrowing from the social platforms that already exist. And I wonder, for everyone that's listening for this today that also perhaps make tools, are developers, or are thinking about making tools in the future, are there things that you think have a negative impact that already exist in the world on current platforms or current tools that, and negative is a spectrum of things, but do you think there's things that we should be cautious of implementing in the tools that we create in now? Because, historically, we know now that, likes and followers and stuff like that can have a negative impact on us psychologically, but yet platforms are making this a main big feature and like pulling it right at the top. Are there any kind of examples of things like that you would just be cautious of, or just ask people just to do a little bit more research of when planning and creating tools for the future with a platform, like this?
Yeah, I think, for example, focus on the highest selling artists, for example, is something that, because that's a self-reinforcing loop and just reinforces the sort of the disparity.
Signal noise issues. Yeah. Like when you're trying to get involved and you don't have a huge social media following, and trying to find ways that people can come up come out of nowhere would be. But yeah, Chantal, just quickly, what about you? Like, you're asking this question. You're a social media wizard. What would you leave out of? I mean, come on, you are. So what would you leave out of from the rest of that world? What would you ask not to have included?
Well, I think if we are thinking about the future and creating platforms for the future, we do want things to be transparent. We do want them to be accessible. We do want them to feel like there is some kind of equal playing field. We do want to create space for discovery and rediscovery. And I feel like if we do kind of regurgitate this idea of, as Mike just said, like the highest paid for and the most likes, then we do open ourselves up for being manipulated from behind the scenes, or kind of giving the most visibility to people who have the infrastructure to build that behind them. And so, I would be hesitant to implement kind of like followers or likes or like the most priced, because then I feel like we are then not taking this as an advantage to really create a new tool or a new platform or a new community or a new future where the priorities are different. And
yeah, that's
I think,
why I'm here.
yeah,
That's why I'm here, because
exactly.
it's free of all that. It's like when I first showed up, there wasn't even any profiles.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, it feels so good. You don't even know. And he was just like looking at art and being like, every piece of art
exactly.
you
So
look at, you just look at it for what it is.
So if that's the goal, that's the narrative, like to create like I'm in this new place and those infrastructures don't exist here. And maybe the priorities is that we look at beautiful work and I don't even know if we have the vocabulary or the words to describe what those new parameters or directives or roadmap is, because we've been so ingrained within the social media of like consumption and likes and value. And so I think for us to all to plant that seed within us of like, what are the values and what are the goals that we really want to drive this in, and let that be the essence that we put behind all of the tools that we create, because then that means that we are walking into this with good intention and kind of that goal or that narrative of just wanting to create this beautiful space that leaves all of that baggage behind.
I definitely see some of that, but I also see it more like I want to be able to have a list of people that I always go to. I don't want to have people follow me. I want to know. I want my little cluster of artists that I really want to see. And I think I think you're right. There's a difference between stats, and I think stats that show how the community is growing and the community health. Stats that show that, I think, can be really, really great. But if you look at, I think there was an issue early on in the GitHub repository about that I think Raphael opened, was about adding like a leaderboard. And it was one of the first things that I've considered as a contribution, as I said, look, here are other platforms. I think from my 3 days on the platform, I don't know how long it had been by that time. Please let's not go down this road. And he agreed.
Yeah, actually, you're absolutely right. That has been, for me, the big differentiator has been when there have been this slight democratization of art. When you're just looking at art, like when I first joined the platform, I was very lucky with my timing, because I think it was just a few days before the first Object for Object weekend. And this is before the bots kicked in and all that problem. So there's a couple of technicals to solve around that. But what was brilliant about that weekend was just suddenly all artists, no matter how famous or how unknown you were, everybody was on the same level playing field, just for a little bit, Like I think I got my first James Patterson piece that weekend, a little Tibet, lovely little piece. And I didn't know who you were. I just loved this piece of work, so I got it. And then I got other bits of work by other people. And then, as time moves on, you realize, oh, well, that guy's actually really up here. And this guy's over here, and he's struggling because he can't get above the noise. So that has been the big differentiator. So all types of competition or likes and favorites, I completely agree with you, Chantal. It'd be nice if that could just be somehow sidelined in favor of platforms that could just be a bit more random or something. I still love just going to the homepage sometimes and I don't know who anybody is. I don't see names or profiles or there's absolutely no clue. But you're looking at a piece, you either like it or you don't. And it doesn't matter who made it. And then the next question is, what does it cost? I suppose you just go, oh.
But
right,
I think it's still like to me, it's still pretty much like that. Like sometimes
it still is good from that point of view.
You don't really know who is because it's just an address. So you have to click on the address and then you go to the profile and then you see the name.
Yeah.
But like when you see a piece, it's just the Tezos address. So I find that's like that to me should absolutely stay, because it is and I completely agree with what you're saying, Chantal. It is what differentiates Hic et Nunc from any other platform. And I think that's why so many artists, and actually not even artists, but creative coders, like a lot, like a big wide community, let's say creators in general, are just coming into like Hic, even not having any form of kind of not even having done any NFTs before, because it's very much same for all kind of, and it's a bit utopistic in a way, but I love it, to be honest, and I still see it that way. Like I don't really know. I see even when I do like my picks and stuff like that, like I just scroll, and then whatever I like, I just like, and I don't really know who the person is, what they do, what their sales record are. Like I don't actually care. It's just like the kind of the visual attachment in a way, or whatever you feel like you like. And
but I suppose
I find that should stay.
Is there not some sort of follower but not follower type thing? Because if you find an artist like that, anonymously on a Tez address, you don't know anything about them, you want to know what they're going to do. You want to know when they bring new stuff out. And that is slightly, I think we're very heavily reliant on Twitter at the moment.
Yeah.
To get news of things, and I get really frustrated when I miss out on some bits. Because I just didn't know they were there, whereas if there was, maybe it would end up being more of a bun fight. But yes, I suppose there's still that feeling,
double-edged knife.
Yeah, there is still that feeling that it's really nice, though, that when you just get lucky, you're on Twitter and it's like 1:30 in the morning, you should really be in bed, just finishing a cup of tea, and then suddenly something drops. You go, oh man, cool. Not a John, like forget that, they're all gone, but something drops by somebody you like, and it's like, this is great. I can get this.
Yeah.
And it's
what do you all think about auctions? Because I know it's like a topic that is kind of been like discussed a bit, and it's definitely something that is, well, obviously like present on all other platforms. So I'm just wondering, what do you think?
It comes into the question that of which features do you allow in the door and which don't you? And one of the commenters, Diane, popped up immediately. Please, no auctions. And I kind of have the same feeling personally that it's happening a lot in the rest of the mainstream NFT world, and it does a certain move. It drives a certain move around money that is
you're right.
Really does something. It just sucks the fun out of it for me personally, and so I don't know what you guys think. I would prefer we went the let's put our effort into collaborative NFTs that split to causes and creators and let everyone else do auctions.
Well, it sets a tone, right? Like it goes back to what kind of community this is. So much of this is a person problem, not a technology problem, right? It's like, are the people in this community, do they want to go towards exploring, sharing, attribution, and optimizing towards more collaborations, or towards maximizing sales? And both are legitimate, right? I mean, it seems like the community, like you start with one and you see what happens, James, to your point, right? How much headwind, how much like backwind are you getting to the idea? I have my personal opinion that I'd like to see the collaborations, but again, it's like, it'll be interesting to see how it bubbles up.
Yeah, I don't think auctions are a good idea. I think it sets a certain precedent, and then we're in a space where only a few can really prevail over time. Like there's so many things I bid on and I'm always outbid, and like, great, like, perhaps that drove up the price, but essentially, like, I think it doesn't democratize things, and these things, as we were talking about being manipulated, the auction houses in the real world are heavily manipulated, and we're going to see that in this space. And also like to comment on what Steve was saying about like, missing out on things. Like we should also consider that, we do live in this world where FOMO is a constructed thing that, drives us to consume and buy. And I think just knowing that you're in the right place at the right time. And so if you come on Hic and Nunc and, it's 1:30 in the morning and you're in bed scrolling and you find something and it's perfect for you and you're able to buy it, that's fantastic. But don't beat yourself up because you missed something the day before, or you're like focusing on something else, Don't beat yourself up, Steve.
No, I'm still killing myself over this one particular OMG I drawed it piece, and it was called The Producer, I think, and it is just so good, right? And like, it's so not the sort of thing I would normally go for, but I missed this thing just because I just didn't know it was out, and I could have got it. And it was just like my studio. It just looked like my studio. Just tons of synths everywhere, and it was just the coolest piece. And a few of us were just crying our eyes out about this. But then again, who knows what would have happened if we had tools to get it, or if it had been an auction.
What's that, Nicole?
I'm not a fan of auctions. Sorry.
I also think like FOMO is such a big part of the NFT space. Like, it's all about FOMO. Like, people really want to build FOMO in you, even if you don't have it. Like, I'm not
it's a
very
tool.
FOMO person. Like, but I don't really have a fear of missing out, to be honest. I've never had it. Like, some people are like, oh, you have to go to this party or thing. Like, to me, it was never a thing. Like, I don't mind. But like, since I've kind of come into the space, I've kind of noticed that, oh, I missed out on this, or I missed out. And actually, like, the beauty of Pick at Nunc is that I don't really feel like I don't have that FOMO. Like, yeah, okay. Anyways, there's so much like experimentation and creation happening that even for artists that let's say, I don't know, I follow, I particularly like, I know if it's not today, it'll be, the next day or tomorrow, or the day, like, they'll do something else because the platform like allows it and makes it easy and accessible for everybody to really test and experiment. So even that's like FOMO, which I think is so like detrimental, to be honest, just kind of goes away. And to me, that's like, like kind of like breath of fresh air.
I think it relates to the previous thing of making things easier or harder, right? Like, so much of what we're talking about is like, should this be easier? Should that part be easier for people to do? And I really love the friction that is organically built in and somehow maintained, at least so far. It's, passive least resistance is, they can be dangerous, right? Like, they can produce FOMO, they can produce these things. And so sometimes to keep the roads unpaved is the way to define, what to focus on, stream the energy in a different direction. So connecting the two threads, I think it's really awesome to also not implement a bunch of things and just decide to feel the pain.
I would never have guessed that it would be that attractive. Like that the lack of paved roads would be such a feature, not a bug. The fact that the site breaks down, when it did break down for like a day, like 24 hours straight, like it had a positive effect on me. And just I don't know how you keep that, but I'm amazed at how refreshing it is.
I don't know.
I think there's an opportunity here to carve out a space for this site that's just intentionally different from the other sites. Because if we just implement the features that the other sites have, those sites exist. If you like those features, you can go to those sites. Right. So here's an opportunity to just make this intentionally something unique, and you can take it or leave it.
If you want to do auctions, there's so many places to do auctions, so you can just do it. But I like the idea that what already happened at Pick at Nunc, like the proliferation of NFT object types was one of the hallmarks of the growth of the community. Like, you go there and there's all these different amazing, people who want to put 3D models. I mean, some other places had that as well, but then it was like, full on HTML, full on software NFTs. I like that. That's the area where it's differentiating. And again, back to, obviously I have a serious agenda here, back to the collaborative NFT thing. Like, I feel like that's the play, like that's the place to go, is like trailblaze on things that don't yet exist in the world, in the space, and then allow, at least they now exist, and it can still be rough around the edges. Still, there's no followers and you might miss out on some good art, but it has these like core killer features that have never existed. I like the idea of that being
a collaborative NFT working group.
Yeah,
to hash it out.
It's so funny what you're talking about here, James, because I feel I haven't really thought about it in these terms. Was it the stuff that's missing is the stuff I like, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
And it's almost like as things get slicker and as new UI features come in, it's like, oh, really? Not quite. It's not quite at that stage yet, obviously, because it still feels like very much a beta alpha. But it's going to be really interesting to see 6 months down the line when things are working a bit more slick, or whatever, or what direction it takes. Whether we're going to feel that something's been lost or not. I mean, it's possible to guess, so there's no point in getting head up about it. But it's funny because you really hit the nail on the head. It's like the stuff that's missing is the stuff that makes it good. And it's literally the only platform I can work on because of the fact that they've embraced all these different content types. So long live that,
I have a question about something that was brought up earlier, which is about it's sort of related to, do you have likes and followers and those kinds of things? And it's to do with the general question of signal noise. So people who have huge social media followings, or even any real, substantial social media following, can release work, can promote the work of others, have their own work either looked at or bought in the case of this new, art economy. And people who don't have any of that megaphone in their hand can't. And it's not. And so, in some sense, the problem is a much bigger problem than a nunc or whether we have followers and likes. It's the large signal noise question around those 8 billion people on Earth, and how do you cut through? And I'm just wondering whether we just back off that whole question, because right now we've pushed it to Twitter. Like, Twitter's where now you're privileged or you're not privileged by your followership. It's not that you have tons of followers on nunc or not, because you can't, but it just drives it to the periphery. And so I'm just wondering, is that something that any of you think that is there anything that can be designed or thought about to address that, or is that just a bigger question of signal
just
noise?
As you were talking, I wonder if one could organize a weekend like object for object, but instead the game is you find somebody on nunc whose work you really like, but their Twitter follower count is very low, and you promote their work. So you always, everybody picks a few other people, and you promote other people's work that are less well known.
But I mean, at the same time, somebody might not want a lot. I don't know. Somebody might not want a lot of followers. Might not have followers because
that's the thing. It's not about followers. It's about appreciation, in a sense. Like, so, for example, on my Instagram for like 2 years, I did a thing called Saturday Artist Showcase, and every Saturday I would highlight the work of an artist that I liked, and I would try and find artists that didn't have a huge Instagram following. And it was for a few reasons. One reason was to show other artists that it's okay to show other artists' work on your feed, because there actually a lot of artists are afraid to show the work of other artists or let them take up their space. And I think that's because we've created this art world of like competition versus collaboration. And so I wanted to set an example of that and to show that it's okay. And then also to kind of give that platform for other people to see the work. And even if only 5 people saw that and they liked it and they inquired about the work or they just researched more about the artist, like, I feel like there's, I've accomplished that mission. It's not about them getting numbers and followers and now they have this appearance. I think it's just about the appreciation of the work. And on nunc, like, I don't know 90% of the people's work that I've like bought there, or that I follow so many people on Twitter, and I don't even look at numbers or whatever. So like, if I like it, I'll retweet it, or if I like it, I'll buy it. Or what I've done now is there's a bunch of people I follow on there, and I look at the work that they're sharing, and I notice that it's organically people are sharing other people's work, and that's how I'm finding the work. But these people don't necessarily have big followers. And I think that's a nice organic way, because I have like literally every day 20 people my messages are open. So I have so many people messaging me like, buy this, see this, look at this. And that's because I have a big following. People think that, I'm going to buy everything. And it's like, no, I'm going to, if I come across it and I like it, then I'll buy it. Yeah. But I think, I think it's, it's a really good question, James. And I think, already I'm seeing people share and retweet and promote other people's work more now than I ever have before. And I think that, obviously we're not there, but I think we've come a long way to like this Instagram space where people are so fearful in showing other people's work.
You're right. It's very platform specific. Sorry, go ahead, Mikkel.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely marry everything that you're saying, Chantal. And it's something that like I've tried to do since the very, 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 very start with the profile. And it's something that like with, the Rarible picks, like it's basically what we really try to like push forward, like give space to artists who don't have that following, because they cannot promote themselves with the following. So they need other tools, and they need other, and like, it's, to be honest, like it's a great way, because like it doesn't mean like sometimes even especially with like the NFT community, like Twitter is as a platform that many of us, or I speak for myself, but it's a shared thing that many of us didn't even use before. So it's a lot of people are new on Twitter, so they have to build that community out of nowhere, and that's also nice because it means that you're kind of like building it from scratch, and so even that is organic in a way. And with Hic et Nunc, like there's so much of that. Yeah, like so much of that side of like the organic side of things, it's just there, and it's so different than any other ecosystem or community or platform that I've seen so far. So I completely agree, and like I don't think that we should have like likes or even a list. Like I think if you like an artist, just put the name on a note. I do that. Like I just put a note on my phone, and I have the names of the profiles that I like, and I can go back to them. But even then, like I don't want like my bias to give me bias in a way. So like I keep using the random tool of Hic et Nunc, and I find that's amazing because it basically takes out the bias even more. So it's great.
Yeah. I think I'm really happy with this conversation, and it's so nice to be here with all these incredible people. And I think, the more conversations like this, the better, because, I feel like everyone here has spoken about how energy could be directed into a positive place. And I think everyone here has said, like, well, let's focus on, like building those tools or paying for those tools, or, giving money to people who were creating those tools beforehand. And I think there's already so many things, like if someone just extracted all of those things, I think there's so many, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but there's so many things that just came out of this conversation that I think are really positive, and that's great. I'm inspired. There you go.
Yeah. That's a nice way to close it off. I think you did my conclusion for me, Chantal. I love that. I think that's great. James, it's on you to create the bounty for
I will start the bounty for collaborative shared attribution, shared revenue, and with just putting a pin for Violet Forrest, who couldn't join us. One of the main reasons for doing that is sharing revenue and attribution between creators, sending money to a person or a cause through what you're doing. So you can just like, Tez hose a group or a person with your work, and then also kicking back funds to all the amazing people. I think you should probably be getting some of that, Mikol, so people can make their NFTs and go, bleep, 10% Mikol fee.
And actually, big shout out to Violet, who couldn't make it today because she is marching for what is happening in Colombia. So for sure, she will join hopefully next week, so she can tell us all about that, and also share her bigger kind of vision for contributions for charities and social causes and all of that. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining. I think this was great. And Diane is actually, thanks Diane, because she's she's doing the write-ups of these conversations, so we can have them all like written up on the website. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks,
So nice to see all of you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Everybody.